So you get the idea. It was a generational thing for a lot of people in Kimberley. I mean, if you didn't want to go to school or whatever, most young guys that came to work in the mine. So sadly, in 2001, the Sullivan mine closed after some 100 years of production. And for Kimberley, it was, it's a major blow. A small town like this, and you lose your major industry, it's not a good thing. But we knew it was going to happen, so we were kind of prepared for it. Some of our city councilors and our previous mayors, they saw the foresight and realized that the mine wasn't going to be here forever. So we converted basically to tourism. And this is a big part of the tourism in Kimberley, our tours of the Sullivan mine, because if the Sullivan mine wouldn't existed, or pardon me, the town of Kimberley wouldn't be here. So Kimberley's whole existence was due to the Sullivan mine. So to counteract the loss of it, Tech and the provincial and federal governments thought, let's do something, with the mining heritage for Kimberley. So we created this, I call it a little mini mine. This isn't the actual old mine where we're in right now. Obviously, it's been closed since 2001. It's just all the legal matters you'd have to deal with. It's not possible to take people in there. But we have created exactly the same here. You're in an underground experience. I'm going to run some equipment for you today. You're going to find out, how life was underground and everything. And I know some people were disappointed in the past because they couldn't go in the actual old mine, but quite honestly, I could tell you, if I could have taken you in there in the old days, we could walk around for a couple hours and you'd say, everything looks the same, and it basically does. So basically, this is what a mine looks like, in real life, other than the fact that it's all lit up and it's quite comfortable in here. Now, mining isn't a profession for everybody, for sure. I mean, nobody was born and said, boy, I can't wait and go work in rock underground in the dark. That's probably not your idea of a great job. But if you could overcome, the fact that you're underground and it's dark and everything, you could make a very good wage in here. That was the one thing that was attractive to it. And I thought to myself personally, if I'm going to work in the dark and a hole in the ground, I'm going to try to maximize my earnings. And fortunately, in the mine, you could make good money. You had to work hard, and it was dangerous and a lot of negatives, but if you were the type of person that didn't mind hard work and everything, you could make a very good living. So, like I say, this was created in 2007. Now, the old mine is, when you came up the creek, on your right-hand side, when you came up on the train, the mine is in that direction. So it's basically a southeasterly direction. It goes over there. And when we go down below, after, I'll show you exactly the location of the old mine. So the old mine was absolutely massive. 300 miles of tunnels underground. 300 miles. I mean, just think of that. And that's all made by human beings. That wasn't natural or anything. It was all drilled and blasted and everything else. Over 30 miles of railroad track underground, because that's how we got around on most levels, was by rail or walk. Then we had 20-some miles of roads. And why roads? Well, because in the middle 70s we went mechanized mining. And it's all rubber tired. It's big equipment. I call it mining on steroids. It's twice as big, 3 times as big as what we do. So consequently, we needed roads for that. So basically, that was the 3 ways that you got around in the mine. Now, this mine in its history employed 60,000 people. That's over 100 years. And you'd be surprised in this area here, we had people that lived in Yak, even Creston. Lots of Cranbrook people and everything that came to work here. I couldn't imagine driving from Yak or whatever every day to come to work, but they did. So it was the lifeblood of the whole community. This place made over $20 billion in its lifetime. So you can see, when we lost that was a major blow. And everybody said, oh, Kimberley, that's it. Kimberley's going to die. Everybody's going to leave town. We defied the odds. We bounced back, and we're doing better than ever. Our population has increased, and we're quite content that we can survive now as a tourist town. But we haven't lost sight of the mine, because the mine was the sole reason that this place is here. So it's very important. Guys like myself, I've been there, I've done that, so what I tell you, and I'm going to show you I've actually done it, so, you know, and we run equipment, which is nice, because a lot of people, they say, well, this is a drill, and, you know, this is what it does. I'm gonna turn it on for you and show you how it actually works, so you're gonna get an idea of what it's like. Now, our main goal here was lead and zinc, that's what we were looking for, right? But we also produce silver, we produce gold, but those are all byproducts, but our main thing was lead and zinc. And how do you go about finding it? Well, this mine was discovered the old-fashioned way. 4 old prospectors wandering around the bush picking on rocks. The one hit a rock and turned around to his partner and said, you know, this looks promising, quite good. Yeah, $20 billion later, it was more than good. And it turned out this was the largest, Little Kimberley had the largest lead and zinc mine in the world. So that's quite an accomplishment when you think. And it operated for over 100 years, which is unheard of, through all the world wars. In fact, lots of guys that worked here underground went and fought in the wars. And Cominco at the time and Tech now, when those guys, if they fought for their country and they hopefully survived and came back, they had their jobs back, all their time was credited, you know, towards their pensions and everything else. So Tech looks after them pretty good, which they should when you go and serve your country. So get over the fact that it's a tough place to work, because Kimberley in the wintertime, like it's not like the north, but it gets dark early. Like you know, 5 o'clock at night, it's basically dark in the winter. So you get the picture. I come to work at 7 o'clock in the morning, it's pitch black. I go into the mine, which is pitch black. I come out and I see, hopefully the sun's out and I might get an hour of it, and then it's dark again. So, you know, humans, that's hard to overcome that. Because we all need, you know, sunlight, because for vitamin D for your body. So, like, in the old days, they had a solarium that some of the old miners, they could go sit in there under light. You know, it simulates sunlight and, you know, makes you feel better. So despite some of the setbacks, it was still a good place to work. We lost 73 people in the history of this mine. Now, that's, you know, that's a big number. I'm not making light of it, but a lot of that was just the nature of the beast. It wasn't necessarily people doing something wrong. It's dangerous. Everything in here wants to kill you or hurt you. Every piece of equipment I run has got the potential to, you know, either kill me or maim me. So, and you can't guarantee. Like, people think you come in a mine, it's solid rock. It doesn't move. It's never gonna, well, they cave in, you know, and who knows why. Last year, for example, northern BC, we had 4 miners trapped in a mine. And they'd gone into an area that morning to do their work, walked through it, you know, similar to what we're in here, and 15 minutes later it all fell down behind them. But thank God they made it through, and they got in a refuge station, and through their training and everything, they knew what to do basically, and they ended up getting out alive. But it doesn't always happen that way. Lots of guys, you know, don't make it out. And I think in your deepest thoughts, if you were gonna say just my true confessions, I'm laying on my deathbed, probably every guy that worked in the mine, the one thing they would say was, I was always afraid I was gonna get trapped underground. And, you know, so you have to kind of get over that. But you know, I looked at darkness as a comfort, because if I couldn't see something, how was I gonna be afraid of it? So, but you know, it's not for everybody. So you've got loud noises, it's dark, it's cold, you get wet a lot, there's heavy equipment running off, there's explosions going off, so it's not normal. But despite it all, 60,000 people worked here over the years, and you know, like I said, made a living. Now our main goal here is to find ore. All 60,000 people that worked here, whether they're directly involved or not, their main function under here was to produce meth to go to the world market, and that's how Tech made their billions of dollars. So what do we have to do? We have to find an ore body. But we have to create all the infrastructure, like these drifts and trams and everything. These are all mining terms, but let's forget all that. We're gonna call them tunnels, right? Everybody knows what a tunnel is. But all that had to be put in place in order to access the ore body. So it's like basically like planning out a city. You know, we have to make, in a city you have to have streets and all that kind of stuff and bridges and all that. Well, underground's the same thing. We have to have the means to get to the ore body. So the ore body's massive. The largest ore body ever discovered in the Sullivan mine was 300 feet thick. Now, don't think that's solid ore. An ore body consists of waste rock plus various minerals. And through assaying and everything, they can figure out, you know, how much basically is in there pretty close. And if it's economically viable, we're gonna go after it. So it's gonna be an ore body, that's what we're discovering. I told you folks, this place was discovered the old-fashioned way, picking on rocks. They've got all kinds of stuff now that they can detect metals just about anywhere on the earth. Yes?
Question, why were they looking here for ore? Because obviously.
Well, it's because prospectors, they just flew into the mountains and all they did was wander around. And they could look at different formations, they were trained geologists. So they could look at a formation and say, you know, this should contain gold, for example, or something. And so you just start basically hit and miss. And they absolutely hit. So, you know, it's not a perfect, it's like drilling for oil. They can think where it is, but, you know, they have a lot of times they drill and they get no results too. So it's not an exact science. So getting back to it, an ore body, like I said, the one is 300 feet thick, is the largest one ever here, but that's an anomaly. I mean, most of them were in the 50, you know, something 75 feet thick, but still a big chunk of ground. So what do? We've got to drill that thing full of holes. So they make a map of it, and all these holes are going to get drilled out at different angles, and they're going to go right out to the perimeter of the ore body. And this whole process might take 2 or 3 years to develop an ore body before it starts to produce. So they spend all the time drilling it. That might take a year. Then they have to load all these holes by hand with explosives. And that takes a long time because it's all, you know, sticks of powder and men are, and it's horrible. Oh, maybe we've got a bear. So anyway, that takes a long time. So you get the idea, it's a long process. So then we're going to end up blasting it. And the largest blast we ever set off on one occasion here in the Sullivan mine had 80 tons of explosives. 80 tons. You're talking a major bomb.
Yeah.
Most of them are in the range of 30 to 40 tons. And I'm thinking, you know, I'm trying to make that sound small potatoes, but that's a massive blast. And these blasts underground actually registered on the Richter scale. That's how big they were. So these were done, these big blasts like this maybe were only done every 2 years or something like this. But then what you do is you take that ore mass and you blast it and you make it broken up, and it's called broken ore reserves. It's like having money in the bank. We might go after it next week, or we might go after it next year, but it's ready to go, right? It's sitting there. Now, I should tell you folks that all rock underground, whether it's solid or it's blasted, we call it muck. Why did that come about? I do not know, but us miners sometimes we have some weird stuff. But anyway, if you see a pile of rock, it's referred to as muck. And it could be waste rock, or it could be ore, or a combination of the two. So from here on in, I'm not going to call it broken rock, I'm going to call it muck. So, the next step is we've got to get it out of the ground. And believe it or not, that's the easiest thing of the process, because we use 2 forces of nature, gravity and sheer weight. And so the ore body's always located above us. So you get the picture, we've got all this so we can go in there and access it. Then we have things called raises, that's anything off horizontal, could be 50 degrees, 10 degrees, anything that's, you know, off level is called a raise. So there'd be subs up above us, like what we're tunnels like we're in now, but up above us, where the long hole drills go in, and they drill the ore body that's above us too. So when they're done, they pull everything out, and all that infrastructure's there, but it's the means to get the ore out. So, because it's above us, it's gonna get extracted. Now, the mine, like I said, 300 miles a ton, huge. It goes from 4,900 feet in elevation to 2,400 feet. And every 100 feet's a different level. Now, there's a crushing chamber located in the mine. And that's where all the muck is gonna end up going while it's in the mine. And all the crushing chamber does, just like the word implied, it's gonna crush the rock all up and make it smaller, right? So it's easy to handle. Then it goes on a series of conveyor belts, and believe it or not, finally goes out of the mine on this belt system. And it goes to 3,700 haulage weight, which, if you're familiar with Kimberley, where Centennial Hall is, the ballpark, that is 37 haulage weight, right on the big corner before you go up to town site, right on that corner. And that had a railway that went down to the concentrator. If you come into Kimberley, before you get to the Catholic Church, you go under a trestle that goes across the highway. That's part of the 37 haulage weight. So all the muck went to the concentrator. Then it got separated. Ore was skimmed off in a sink and float method and everything. All the waste rock went into a big pile. And if you're familiar, in years ago, you used to drive up from Cranbrook, and there was a mini mountain up behind Marysville where the concentrator used to be, and that was all waste rock. And it would be by far the tallest mine, or hill in Saskatchewan, for sure. But it was huge. So all the ore ended up going trail to the smelter, which still exists. And there it was made into the various products that were shipped around the world, and Teck made their billions of dollars. So pretty simple. We find it, we drill it, we blast it, we extract it. Now, I was a conventional miner, and what a conventional miner meant, everything I did was handheld. So I ran drills, I run this slusher hoist, I run a mucking machine that I'm gonna show you. So it's the old-fashioned way of mining, and to me, it's the true form of mining, because I'm old school and I believe in that. But we also had mechanized mining, I mentioned, came in here in '75, it's rubber tired. And it's mining on steroids, it's big, heavy equipment, but you just sit on a nice cushion seat, you pull levers, you know, to drill and everything. Still a very effective form of mining, but to me, it's pretty easy compared to what I did. And somebody here might be a mechanized miner, might get upset at me, but I don't care. I'm like I say, I think I did it the right way. But anyway, so the ore's gotta go to the crusher, right? So, in the mechanized end of it, they had big scoop trams. They're like front end loaders, and they could physically drive in, pick it up, dump it in the crushing chamber. Well, here, we had to go through a system of muck raises. So I said every 100 feet's a different level, right? So let's say we're at 3,900 level right here where we are. So the next level below to be 3,800. So we have to have the means, because we don't have access to the crushing chamber from this level, we're gonna have to send that muck down to the next level. And a guy comes along with a tray, and he loads it up, and eventually he might go a mile away, and that's how big the mine was. We're not talking 100 yards. He might go a mile away on that level to where he can dump it into the crushing chamber. So you get the picture. It all eventually goes to the crusher, no matter what location it's in. So I'm gonna demonstrate this method here, and it's called a slusher hoist. And it's been used for over 100 years. It's a bucket, metal bucket, electric motor, and it's got cable. And you just go back and forth, and you have a hole in front of, I'll show it when I go inside. There would be a hole in front of this bucket called a muck raise, and that's how the muck would get down to the next level. And these were all done by guys like myself. They had to be drilled and blasted ahead of time and everything, so it's all set up and ready to go. So, we're gonna bring it out through these things when we go in there, called draw hole. And the term is, we're gonna draw the muck out. That's what we're gonna do. And that's where gravity and the sheer weight of it helps our job. But the draw holes are funnel shaped. Like the front of them are only 4 feet wide, but they're 8 feet inside. And the reason they're funnel shaped is because we wanted a form of control on that muck. Because if the muck just comes roaring out of there nonstop, we could never clean it up. So we want to be able to slow it down, and then we can get the bucket in there and we, move it into the hole in a controlled atmosphere, basically. So let's go in here and line up along here, and I'm going to explain to you how this works. And trust me, this job here, I could teach 5 or 6 year old kids to do this job.
Can you teach a 3-year-old?
Yeah, probably. So the thing is, I neglected to mention, a lot of the jobs here underground are on a bonus system. So basically, the more you make, the more you produce, the more money you make. Now, this job here, for example, had a bonus attached to it. So these guys, and it was reserved for older guys, because it's an easy job, but, you know, they deserved to take it easy in their last few years here, so we put them on this job. And they get a bonus of up to $100 a day doing this job. And when you see how easy it is, you're gonna go, man, that's pretty good. The only thing you had to figure out here is which lever makes it go that way, and which lever makes it go this way. You got the hole in the ground back here, and that's your sole objective, to get that much in that hole, right? So this is what I refer to as a draw hole. Now this is 45 degrees on the bottom. And the reason it's 45 degrees, because that's deep enough the muck is gonna run. If I made it 40 degrees, I'm gonna have problems. I'm gonna be forever, you know, it's gonna be hanging up and it's not gonna run properly. So it's very important that you do it right. And the fact that it's pinched down, that gives me some control. So the idea, you go back and forth, the muck runs out of there, down the hole. Now, the odd time I might get a big piece of muck in here and it's gonna gum up the works, right? So I have to, my favorite job is making up an explosive charge and going boom and break the rock and, you know, the process starts again. So other than that was, I got up to maybe go for lunch or go to the bathroom. The other times I just sat on a nice heated seat with a heat lamp, and the only thing I was missing was a big screen TV. You know, pretty well. This is the small version. This is a 10 horse. It's a small bucket. But just to give you an idea what it's like. Some of them are 150 horse, bigger bucket. Move more muck, right? So we'll show you how it works. This is where the simplicity comes in. Look at that, overnight I didn't forget which one makes it go that way, and makes it go this way. So you get the idea, it's very simple. Very, very simple. You can't, you know, not a lot's gonna go on. You might break the cable. I can show you how to splice cable, it's not difficult. And you gotta remember, there might be 6 more of these tunnels, and with an old guy in there, and they're all drawing that muck out of the bubbles. And it might take 5 years, if that ore body's big enough to get it all out of it. And like I say, $100 a day bonus, pretty nice. And you weren't too concerned about the muck. Every 2 weeks you checked your bank account, and as long as there was a plus in there, you knew it got the trail, so you were in good shape. So you get the idea, every piece of muck in this mine either went to the waste pile down by Marysville or ended up going to trail as ore. And the only difference is it's mechanized, use heavy equipment. But it all went through the same process. And I'm gonna demonstrate a mucking machine to you at the end of this, and that would be the third way we get muck into the system. So it's very simple, really, other than the fact that there's a lot of logistics you have to get to and everything in order to produce it. But once it starts producing, and then the mine was big enough, we'd have 2 or 3 of these on the go at any one time. So we had lots of money in the bank, and it was just a matter of, you know, utilizing it. So, do we understand the process? Any questions?
What did you
Or,
wear on your hand?
pardon me?
What did you wear on your hand?
I wore rubber gloves usually.
Really?
Yeah. Well, and rubber because you're wet a lot, eh? So, rubber is not, you know, we wore rubber boots too, which is not great on your feet, but it's just because everything's basically wet. I should mention one time here, we had a phenomena happen that this muck actually went molten. It was like a volcano. To this day, nobody knew why, but they've got some theories, and one of them was ore is basically sulfides, and sulfides, you know, got a lower burning point. Now, remember I mentioned big explosions, so the 80-ton explosions, for example, can you imagine how much heat that generates? So it was a perfect storm. I'm thinking, from the heat of the blast, the fact that it's sulfides, it actually went molten. And we're standing here like, we scrape muck, not lava. So what are we gonna do? And it's a case of, there's ways you can seal the place off rather than oxygen, it's gonna go out basically. But they didn't wanna do that because it would form lava, right? If it's lava, you'd have to remine it. So they had to keep it malleable enough so they could actually get it out of here. My dad was one of them that worked in here. They had big asbestos suits on, you know, air packs on, and when you mention asbestos now, you couldn't do it because, you know, the reputation asbestos got. But this was in the 70s, so it was allowed. But it took a while to get it out of here. The issue was, if you lived in Kimberley at the time, it was producing SO2 gas, and that was all going in the atmosphere above Kimberley. Major, major problem because it kills everything in its path. I mean, vegetation, animals, humans, you name it. We got over it, and, you know, it's never happened again, but couldn't explain it. But when we go in the other room, I'm gonna actually show you a picture of what it looked like, so you know I'm not pulling your leg. So we understand the concept of getting the muck out of here, right? Okay, we're gonna move on. So when you come to work in the mine, it's like every other job. I come in here and I don't instantly get the job I want. I gotta go through, mining very much show me, prove it, show me, you know, don't, I can walk in pounding my chest, I'm the greatest miner in Canada, and you go, yeah, maybe you are, but you can clean toilets or something for 6 months, and you know, you got that. So you get the idea, you had to go through the hoops. Now you look in here, we've got cement sprayed on the walls, we've got screen on the back, we've got those bolts in there called rock bolts. And these are all forms of ground control. And remember I said those guys up north that caved in on them, and they had it screened and bolted, but that's no guarantee it's not gonna come down, because these bolts are only like 6 feet long. But believe it or not, one of these bolts will hold up to 40 tons on its own. But you're looking at millions of tons, so really it's a small thing when you think about it. But it's a way of making it safe, but it's still no guarantee that it isn't gonna happen, you know, it caves in or something. And people don't think rock moves, it moves. I mean, why are there earthquakes and all that kind of stuff in the world? Because rock shifts. So they had sensors in here that took readings every month, and if it stayed in the threshold, it was no problem. But if it started, you know, showed more movement, then they would be concerned about it. So we really tried to mitigate, you know, disasters and things that happen, but unfortunately it happened. So we did this as needed. Like if I'm driving a tunnel and the ground's bad, they might say to me, put rock bolts in, put screen on, or spray cement on. And we all did that. And it was a bonus. Like we got paid a bonus for doing it, so anytime we were making money, we were happy. You know what I'm getting at? Let's say we're all greedy, and we were in those days because we were very concerned about making money. But we also wanted to go home to our families. So it's just a form of ground control. Now you look in here, you can notice the back, that's like a ceiling in your house, but we call it a back in mine. It's basically in an arch shape. Because that's stronger, it's stronger than a flat. So it's basically just physics. Mechanized mining, much bigger. It might be 20 feet wide, 25 feet high. So just physics, you make it bigger, you're apt to have more ground fall. So they're very proactive, they screen and bolt everything ahead of you. But that's still no guarantee that, you know, places aren't gonna cave in and everything. So despite our best efforts, guys have still lost their lives in cave-ins, or, you know, a big rock comes down, or whatever, but you can't predict that. I mean, I could walk through here for 20 years, and 20 years in one day, I walk through here and bang, a rock lands on me, and it's all over, so. Anyway, we're gonna move along. I eventually got to the point where my job was drilling tunnels and blasting. So I blasted every day, my partner and I. Whereas this slusher mining I was talking about, you had one big blast every 2 years or something. But when you were driving tunnels, we were handling explosives and drilling and blasting every day. So I'm gonna show you here, run the jack plate for you and give you an idea of what we do in a day. There is a porta potty in the back here, if anybody needs it. And this room here is nice and warm, so if anybody's cold, they can go in there and warm up.
I did have a question.
Yeah.
Through here,
Yeah, but I wore mouse, I wore, yeah. And there are Legos and colors in there, and so kids get it. Or you adults get bored. Go in there. I won't be offended, honest. So come on up here. Now, I'll just give you a quick lowdown here. My job, like I say, was to drive these tunnels. And believe it or not, even though there's 300 miles of tunnels in this mine, we actually knew where we were. Because it was all mapped and surveyed, so it's not like I'm just wandering around, where am I going today sort of thing. So where we're in right now would be called a mining heading. This would be an active spot. They want us to drive a tunnel. So that area right there that's all painted and see wires hanging out of it and holes in it, that would be called the face. And all the face is, that's the area that we're gonna start the tunnel and we're gonna drill it. And it might call for 100 feet long. So I'm, from experience, I know that's probably gonna take us 10 days, maybe 12 days to drive this thing 100 feet long. Our goal every day is to drill it a round, we call it. The holes will be 6 feet deep in the pattern, basically you see there. Then we load it with explosives and we blast it. So every day, in order for me to make my bonus, my partner and I, we had to come in here, clean muck out, bar it down, check for explosives, get our machine set up, drill 30-some holes in there, load it with explosives and blast it, and then we could go home and with content in the fact that we've made our bonus for the day. And we were greedy, I'm not gonna deny it, and I was still making an hourly wage, but that wasn't enough for me. I wanted to make the bonus. That was the incentive we had. So, we come in here, and we had a cross shift. That's another 2 guys who work on the opposite shift of us. We all share in the bonus this place is gonna make. So 4 guys are going to be sharing in whatever this place makes. And we get paid X amount of dollars per foot over top of our wages. So the race is on. We want to make it. So we come in here, like I mentioned, it might have been blasted before, we have to get rid of the muck. We have a setup like I described over there. We have a little hoist, there'd be a hole in the ground. We scrape it in there, good, it's gone. We don't care where it goes. We know it's going to the trail, but I don't care. I just want to get it out of here. Then we check, we take this thing called a scaling bar, and I go around like this, and I'm banging on the back and the sides. I'm looking for loose rock, and I want to knock it down before it falls down on us. And it's called scaling or bar. Now, it's not all bright and lit up like we're in here right now. I'm going to be in a confined space, maybe 8 feet wide, 8 feet high. My partner's going to be in there. We're going to have 2 of these machines in there, so you get the idea, it's getting pretty cramped. Now, this job we do every day. Very mundane, pretty simple. A lot of guys have lost their lives on this job because the fact you're in a confined space and you start knocking around, and all of a sudden the whole back comes down. Where are you going? You're going to be under it, and you're not going to survive it. So it has happened. Now, we passed that test, thank God. Now I look at the face that's been previously blasted, and I'm checking for explosives that didn't go off during the blast. And that happens for various reasons. Cord might get cut or something. How do I know it's explosive? Because it's going to be pink in color. How do I know that? Because we use fertilizer and diesel fuels called Amex. Comes in a bag just like fertilizer you throw on your lawn, but it's an explosive. It's a perfect mix of diesel and everything. So we blow it in the holes after we drill it. So when I see pink in there, I know there's still powder in it. Now, because it's fertilizer, it'll dissolve. So I take my water hose off, my machine, and I put a little implement on the end of it. It's got an orifice on it, and it's high pressure. It's like a pressure washer. I can wash the fertilizer out. It runs out. Then if there's a live cap in there, I can physically remove it and get rid of it. The cap's the scary part because it has explosive in it that sets the powder on. The powder by itself, it's not that big a deal, but it's the cap that you have to be concerned about. And why am I concerned? Because these are electric caps. So when I'm checking for it, I don't want to make a spark because it could set that cap on. Now, that little implement I put on my water hose, it's made of brass. And I use brass because brass does not spark. So anything else, any other kind of metal could set it off, so you have to be very careful. Okay, so we get it all done, we hook our machines up, we drill all these holes 6 feet deep. We get a loader, it's called. It's a little metal tub, holds a bag of powder, which is 50 pounds. I load it up and it's got a 12-foot hose on the end of it, hollow hose. I take the blaster, the business end, the cap end of these cords, put it in the hose, crimp it over like that, shove it in the hole, and blow the powder in. So that's a loaded hole. The cap is in there, it makes a solid 6-foot long hole, because the pressure of the air breaks up the krills in the fertilizer and makes a solid piece. So that's a loaded hole. Now, these are millisecond delay electric caps. And that's important because they're numbered from 1 to 20, for example. So, guess what goes first? Number 1, right? Number 20 is gonna go last. So, because this is drilled in a certain way, this area in here is called the cut. And you can see in red there's big holes here. And why are those big holes there? Because we have to create an opening. Because powder goes to a weakness, right? So I put number 1 in here. So it's gonna go first, kick over into these big ones, make it bigger. Number 2 goes next, so you're working from the inside out. So once this area in here all comes out 6 feet deep, it all blasts out, the rest of it follows suit. But you have to have that sequence right. And it's millisecond delay. This whole thing, 30 holes, is gonna go off in less than a second. You're just gonna hear and it's over. So it's pretty amazing. Now we hook it, clip on to this stuff called B-line. And this stuff has an explosive core in it. You can cut down trees, you can break rocks, everything with this cord. Some old miners used it for a shoelace, believe it or not, not knowing that it had the potential to blow your foot up. So once it's all wired up, I take yellow blasting wire and I take this is my blaster, little mini blaster. I run yellow wire probably out to where the motor is on the train you folks rode in on. That's gonna be far enough away we can blast. I hook the leads on here, I press the button, amber light comes on, that means it's in charge. I press that one, kaboom.
And then where'd you go, so you don't go?
We're way back there, and we're heading out, the shift is over, everybody's going out of the mine. So, the blast goes off, hopefully, it broke, we got a pile of muck here, our cross ship's gonna come in, they're gonna repeat the whole procedure. Now, when you blast like this, we produce carbon monoxide, and it's odorless, tasteless, and deadly. But we have an exhaust raise and a muck raise in the back end that all the gases and everything escape through that, the dust after the blast. But we leave fresh air blowing because you want to get fresh air back into play. So the Mines Act states you cannot go back after a blast for half an hour. But that coincides with us going out, the end of our shift and our cross shift coming in. That's well past half an hour and they can fly at it and do the same thing. So at the end of 2 weeks, they come in, they measure up all the footage we produced, how many feet times the dollar value attached to it, divided by 4, and that would make our bonus. So we were very concerned about making money. Now, this is the machine we use to create the holes for these tunnels, and this is called a jack leg. It's got a telescopic leg on it, it's on a hinge, it's run by air and water. It weighs 135 pounds. A lot of things can go wrong. If that hose comes off, or the hose gets cut, that thing will literally beat you to death. If a hose comes, or if a steel breaks, which happens quite often, the machine will jump ahead, and you gotta remember my partner and I are about 2 feet apart, we're both running one. I can't hang on to it, it's got that much power, it's gonna land on him, or his is gonna land on, so, it's got an element of danger involved. It's loud, and it's called a jackleg drill, and a lot of miners also call it a widowmaker because it has the potential to, cause great bodily harm. So I'm gonna fire this thing up for you and show you how it runs. It runs on air and water, and you're gonna see water coming out of the hole. And what the water does, it washes the cuttings out, keeps the dust down and everything. So Everybody cover their ears here and I'll let you know when we're ready. So this is my leg pressure here, you can see, this leg I can move it. Now you want to drill it about the angle the hole's going on, right? So this is my drill part, this is the part that hammers. So we're going to turn it on, so, are we ready? Here we go. So can you imagine that going through these, and we're in a space that's 8 feet high and 8 feet wide, and that's going to be going for 2 hours. It's going to take at least 2 hours to drill the round off. So you can understand why most old miners are deaf. Because in my dad's day, for example, they didn't have plugs and ear muffs and all that stuff. So if you had a piece of Kleenex, and something in your pocket, you stuck that in your ears, and that really doesn't cut it. So you get the idea, like I did this for 25 years straight, every day, but made good money doing it. I've had my hands operated on for carpal tunnel, every guy that runs drills, same thing, but no major injuries, but a lot of guys have got hurt by these. You don't have to be a big gorilla to run it. I've seen guys 120 pounds soaking wet run these, no problem. So, you know, it's all technique and it's doing it the right way. And, excuse me, I'll be 79 in September, and every time I turn this machine on, I want to come back mine. It's a thrill. You can't explain it unless you've done it. So, anyway, any questions?
Where did you get the mug from?
The what?
Yes, where you get the mug out, he's just like,
Oh. So anyway, we're gonna go in the other room. Got some stuff to show you in there, and it's nice and warm. Yeah. Well, I didn't have any basic pride, I thought it was part of it. Okay, folks, so this is refugee state. This is where we go, like the name implies, if there was something happened in the mine and we had to take refuge, this is where we come. So every level in the mine, remember I said every 100 feet's a different level, every level of the mine would have one of these refuge stations. And if something happened, they put a capsule in the airline called methamocated, and it's the same stuff they check for natural gas leaks and that in your house, and it smells like rotten eggs. So the minute, like I turned that grill on over there, for example, the whole place would smell like rotten eggs, and that was your clue to come to the refuge station. And you had to come in here because the Mines Act stated, and there's a number here like that, everybody has to. And if you ignore this, you might get away with it, but if you got caught, you could end up getting fined, or you could possibly go to jail. I mean, that's how the Mines Act is, so it's nothing surprising. Now, the big thing is, we all come in here, and we might have 60, 70 people that work at day. So you get an idea, this space is that big if you got 60 people. So the first thing I would say, okay, folks, let's everybody calm down. To the point where not a lot of laughing and joking around because we don't want to use what options we got here, right? And by breathing harder and longer, we're producing carbon dioxide, which we don't want either. It's a fact of life. So we try to keep it on the down low. We have oxygen back here. We could open up, crack it, and make it a little more comfortable in here. And we could be here for a couple of days in the worst case scenario. So we have the means here, we can seal the doors shut, make sure we're safe in here, but we have no food and water or anything, so it's not that comfortable. So it's just a matter of, We've been fortunate to install in mine. I've been in one of these maybe half a dozen times, maybe half an hour at the most, and phone in and say, okay, everything's good. Away you go. In the old days, the mine was so big, there could be a fire in one part of the mine, I'd go home. In the day, somebody say, you hear about the fire? No, because if you weren't involved, you didn't see it. So, oxygen is very important, obviously. The average human, you need 19%, you're gonna be fine. If it goes down to 11%, some people might get lightheaded, start to want to faint. If it goes below that, we're all getting a ride out at one of these. Your tour is over, my career is over, so you get the idea, oxygen is very important. Now, our ship bosses carry these, they're called breather testers, they're just little bellows, it's got a glass tube that goes on here, and it's got marking, that tells you oxygen level. They come in and squeeze it, oh, you guys are fine, your oxygen level is fine. But trust me, if you're in a place with low oxygen, or, you feel it physically, like you start getting read, you're disoriented, you're staggering around, sort of thing. So you have to get out of there and get another source of air in or something to make it safe. So our shipments come in twice a day, check on us with this. We also have these safety lamps filled with coal oil, got a wick in it, you turn it on, you hang it up in your working place, if they suspect lower oxygen. Because a flame needs oxygen, right, to burn. So if that flame goes out, that could possibly mean our oxygen level is too low. We're not all gonna hit the deck, but it's a warning sign saying, let's do something about it, right? So we try to, even in a line like this, it has great ventilation in it. The fact that there are areas that are low oxygen or no oxygen, so you have to be very, very alert. Now, remember I told you, when we blasted, it was like lava? That's what it looked like. So I mean, it was a volcano underground. So I got this book in my hand, my partner in crime, he used to do these tours, he wrote this book, it's an excellent book if you're interested, for sale at the station. And I just plugged it for it, because it is a good book. Anyway, so it's available if you're interested. Now, worst case scenario, we're in here for maybe a couple of days, we're getting pretty antsy and want to get out of here. So they might phone in and say, okay, we're gonna take you out, but it's not that easy, and just go to the work day. Because it could be gas, you're smoking, whatever. So everybody's gonna have to put spot air back. Days 2 hours locked in, great. You go a long way for 2 hours. But if you get excited or you're breathing hard, you can go through 2 hours. Wait. And everybody in here, if you're in here for a couple of days, you're gonna be on edge. You're not gonna be feeling normal, upset. So if I said to this lady here, come on up, we're gonna put this on your back, and you go, oh yeah, that feels pretty comfortable. I go, oh, good, good. Then I go, oh, and by the way, this is gonna go on your face. And I gotta make sure all the straps are tight. What's your natural reaction? You're probably going, oh my God, you're gonna start breathing hard, and you know what I mean? And I'm not saying little girl, and I don't every one of you are the same way, because I know this. So if you're a scuba diver or something, you know how to breathe properly, but the average person doesn't. And most people, when they put a mask on their face, even if they're cool with it, they still breathe harder. So you have to learn. It's very important. So we're going to move on to the third step here. I'm going to show you how a mucking machine works. Remember I said there are three ways muck gets into the ore pass. The slusher hoist I demonstrated. Mechanized I didn't demonstrate, but it's heavy equipment. And this third way is a muck. So we're going to go back and we're going to show you that. And any of the kids that want to stay here and color or anything, go ahead. Or adults too, you can.
Looks like fun.
I don't discriminate, because I mean, adults like doing Legos too. Come on in here. Just watch your step here, it might be a little slick. So the thing you have to remember when you come in a mine in an area like this, it's pitch black. Like normally, it isn't lit up, like we got lights in here obviously because it's a demonstration, but. So I would be, everywhere I go with my partner, this is what we'd be using as our tap lamp. And believe it or not, when it's pitch black, these lamps are very bright. Obviously, I turn it on here, it doesn't have much effect because there's light here. So, this would be the third way we get muck into the system. So let's imagine we blasted here and this is a muck pile, right? What am I gonna do with it? Well, we wanna get it out of here. I'm gonna use this creature called a mucking machine. I'm gonna pick it up with the bucket, I'm gonna throw it in that car, and my partner's gonna be back in the tunnel back there with a train with empty cars. So when I fill this up, I have my light on, and I go like this in a circular motion, because it's pitch black in here, he's gonna see it, and he knows I've got a car full, I want him to come in, switch it out, bring me an empty. So it might take 15 cars to maybe get rid of a round, I'm just throwing out a number. So this runs by air, that's my power source. Do not run over your hose, because then you got no power. And trust me, if you've done this job enough, you'd run over your hose. I'm not gonna stand here and say, I'd never run over my hose, because I'd be a liar. So that's your power source. The key here is it's chain driven. The chain on the inside has to be tight at all times, because if you hit the muck pile with a slack chain, this thing could go sideways, go off the rails, or when I throw my bucket back, it'll only go halfway, and I don't want that. So, other than the fact that you gotta, keep your chain tight and everything, it's a pretty easy machine to run. But a lot of guys have issues with these machines all the time. So, it's like anything else. There are operators, and some guys think they're operators, and they're not, sort of thing. So, we're gonna turn it on for you, show you how it runs. So it runs by air, like I say, same as the drill. So here we go. So it's a wonderful piece of machinery. Do not take your arm in there or peek over it and say, how's it going? Don't do that. And keep your chain tight, and your muck, once you get good at it, it's amazing, you can fill a car up in no time flat. I don't wanna fill it up, cause then I gotta dump it. I'm gonna do that tomorrow. So I gotta do it in stages here. So that's a mucking machine, like I say, don't run over your hose. These are used still in gold mines and a lot of mines up north, because they're very cost effective. This machine's probably 80, 90 years old and still runs great. But, don't run over your hose. We have a rubber tired version. They're great because you can go where you want, but you will run over your hose a lot more. And I don't like it because as I progress, I have to physically add ties and rails. So it's more labor intensive. I'm very much into the drill in the hole, blasting it, and open my wallet and making dump money in it. And here or there, they'll dump money in my wallet, but I gotta do more to do it. So anytime I gotta do more, I'm not that thrilled. So anyway, so hopefully you learned a little bit about mining. There's a lot more involved, obviously. You folks are gonna go on the train now, down below to the power station. I'm gonna meet you down there, and we got a tour down there too. And the compressor that we're gonna go to supplies the air for all the equipment and everything we run. So, on the train, and I'll see you down below. And there's a nicer bathroom down there if anybody's interested.
You're very good at what you do.
Well, thank you.
And I wouldn't think all miners would be good at talking about it the way you are.
Well, you know what? That's the problem. I know lots of guys that try to get to do this job, but they can't talk.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't talk amongst people that they know. That is the one thing.
Yeah.
Not full of BS.
Understood.
You mentioned the asbestos suits in the 70s, early 70s.
What was that? Yeah, so you know.
Yeah.
That was one time I see over here talking.